I like wind, whether it be a cool summer breeze on an otherwise hot day or a chill autumn gust. There is something about wind that I think is core to the human experience. It makes me feel alive in a way that not everything in the environment does. And I value the sound of it and the feel of it a lot. And I really like it when video games can elicit a similar sort of feeling as real wind does. So I want to talk about a few games that I think have good wind. These aren't necessarily going to be surprises. I think they're kind of famous for their wind. Or maybe not famous for their wind, but they're famous for having good wind. I don't know. These aren't necessarily going to be surprises, but I do just want to take a little bit of time to sit back and appreciate them. It's also not like a top 10 list. It's just some games I was thinking about. The first being, and you can see it right here, The Witcher 3. Honestly, in The Witcher 3, wind kind of feels like its own character. It is just so present throughout the game. Every environment feels like it is on the verge of a storm at all times. And there's something about that that is both unsettling but also comforting. I don't fully know how to describe it. It's like that feeling where everything is going okay, but you know it's not going to be in a minute. And that's kind of The Witcher 3 in a bottle. And the wind obviously is a big part of that. And some of that's the sound, some of that's the visuals. And I think it is just so good at creating a realistic feeling. From a animation standpoint, you can see it with things blowing around. Trees are always swaying back and forth. The individual leaves are moving. Sometimes seemingly leaves fall off and fly around. Character's hair, especially Geralt's, which is going to by default be long hair, is always flowing in the wind. And this doesn't just apply to running around and standing around. It also happens when talking to NPCs. So sometimes, especially when like a storm is near, characters just look ridiculous because the trees behind them are blowing and their hair is a complete mess. It just seems like they could get picked up and thrown away by the wind at any moment. And it's just a really good use of a physics engine to show the effect that the wind is having on the characters. I think as far as the sound of the wind itself, it's what makes it work is it's not just one sound. It is layers and layers of sound that mix together to create a realistic feeling wind. There's kind of this higher pitch on the side that you can hear. I mean, it depends, I guess, if you're wearing headphones, but it seems like directionally it kind of comes from more of the side and a little bit up, and it's higher pitch and it changes in intensity. Sometimes it blows really hard, sometimes it's going soft, and that shift is always heard and felt, and it's not just one constant thing. It's always there, but its sound is not always constant. And then sometimes you get this lower drone over the top, which feels like it's over the top of the trees, kind of passing away. And then of course you get the trees themselves, which you see rocking, and you can hear the sound of wind blowing through the leaves and that rustle of trees that is just so I don't know, it's just such a good sound. It is a top 5 sound, to be honest, the sound of wind rustling leaves. And if you don't agree, then that's fine. You're allowed your own opinions. But I think it's a top 10 sound. You also can get the sound of what sounds like dry leaves being blown around on the ground. And it's like, you know, that sound when you crunch a leaf, you step on it and crunch, it's like half of that, right? Just them rumbling around. You don't really see these leaves rolling on the ground, but you do hear them, and it's just such a powerful effect. So you have like 4 or 5, there's probably way more layers, to be honest, but you have like 4 or 5 layers of different kinds of winds going in and out, some lasting for a long time, some just being short little bursts, always changing in intensity. And it creates this lifelike feeling to it. And even though wind doesn't really have a big impact on the gameplay itself, it is always felt. And when Geralt hits you with one of those winds howling, you're just like, yeah, it is, Geralt. It definitely is. Red Dead Redemption 2 does a lot of this same texture work. You get all of these different layers interacting together to create such a full sounding feeling. It's not just wind, it is wind interacting with things, everything in the environment. And in the same way as The Witcher 3, it creates that lifelike feeling that you're almost out there. These windstorms can come in, and of course, so much of what makes this game special is in its character and animation work, and that starts with Arthur, who reacts to how the wind is. He'll make subtle movements of when it's supposed to be really windy and kind of cold, hunching forward and clearly trying to keep the wind out of his face, even putting his hat down to avoid the wind getting in. And I love that so much. It works with the sounds and the environment to not just show like this is everything interacting around you, but this is how it affects your guy, Arthur Morgan. And I've said it before, Arthur is probably my favorite character in a video game? ? He is someone I think about a lot, and I think he is one of the more fully realized characters in a video game. And it is both in the story itself where that happens, and just you spend so much time with him and see him interact with people in so many unique and powerful ways, but it is also these tiny moments of humanness, of reacting like a human, that make it powerful. Geralt doesn't really do this. He notices it, but doesn't really react to it physically. Maybe you could argue that that is a Witcher thing to do. In fact, that almost certainly is the case. And that's a really cool touch. I think it's effective in making Geralt feel like Geralt. Just like in Red Dead Redemption 2, having Arthur react to things is effective in making Arthur feel like Arthur. And more importantly, make Arthur feel like a human. And feel like a human in a way very few video game characters do. I think a lot of AAA open world games have gotten to the point where they have pretty great wind. I think they've learned lessons from stuff like The Witcher 3 and from stuff like Red Dead Redemption 2. And most stuff now, I would say, is up there. I think Ghost of Tsushima, obviously, is an example of a game that uses the wind in a lot of notable ways. Horizon, the modern Assassin's Creed games, all of them have developed pretty good systems to make cool weather effects. And, it's largely because they have these massive, massive teams where it's not just a couple people that have to learn all skills. They can have people specialized to working on wind. You have a wind developer. I don't think it's that specialized, but you have a team focused on it. I feel like it's gotten to a point where most games have good wind. Now, good wind does not a good game make. But when a good game has good wind, it kind of elevates it to another status. And obviously it's not just wind. It's all sound effects and animation effects. It's those little things that make an experience feel all that more special. And if you can put that on top of a great game, which I'm not saying all those other open world games I just mentioned aren't great. I know a lot of people like them. They don't hit for me in the way that RDR2 and The Witcher 3 do. But I think that when you have it all, it's like these are the little touches that make a game feel unique, make it feel special. A title that I think this is very true for, to continue talking about big open world games, is Breath of the Wild. Wind is used in a similar way to how I mentioned the other games use it. More so than The Witcher 3 and RDR2, wind is a mechanic. I do think I have heard that RDR2 it can affect your bullets. I don't know that I've really noticed that, but in Breath of the Wild, wind is a thing you interact with in a few different ways. One of the more notable ones is setting something on fire in a field and then using that updraft to fly with your glider, which is very cool. You feel like you're having a massive effect on the environment when you do this. There's something about that grass setting and just that wind noise coming in that's like, oh my gosh, I'm changing the world in a notable way. Not to mention the sound of the glider itself is really cool. The flapping of the fabric. Man, that's also a great sound. Maybe not top 10. It's not as good as Leaves, but it's up there. It is a good sound. The wind also pairs with what is one of the major collectibles in the game, the Koroks. When you're nearby some of them, you can hear what sounds like a wooden wind chime, and then when you actually collect them, that sound plays again. So you create this association between reward and wind in a neat little small way. And yeah, it's cool. Sticking with Nintendo, I also really like the wind in Animal Crossing New Horizons. I think part of this has to do with the time it came out. It is hard to separate it from that era, which was just a very tumultuous and weird time of life. And I think most people experience the game through that lens. And having this game to turn on where you have beautiful wind playing and chill music was just a nice escape from all of the unrest and uncertainty that was going on at the time. I say at the time as if we're not still in times of unrest and uncertainty, but that's not the point of this video. The wind just works really well here. I think I like it best in the early stages of the game. In fact, I think I like a lot of things in the early stages. Don't get me wrong, I like the music of Animal Crossing, but some of it can be a little more intense than what I want. Honestly, sometimes I wish I could just have the sound effects, hearing my character run around and hearing the wind and the sound of the creek and the sound of the ocean and the waves crashing against the shore. All of that would be better. I don't want to say better than some of the music, but more powerful for me in certain moments. My favorite part is early on when the only music is really this guitar riff and, you know, a little bit of shaking. Like it's quiet. It's a little more understated, where some of the other tracks get a little more bombastic. But in this early section, there's something about the combination of this sort of rambling guitar with the wind that just feels right. It is a good combination of sounds. It feels like a fall day to me. Most of Animal Crossing feels like a nice fall day, and you're outside and you hear someone playing guitar for some reason. It's good. Animal Crossing, I think the wind is a little less sophisticated than any of the other three examples, but it of course does still use the layering technique. There's this droning noise over the top that changes with intensity, and of course the rustle of leaves. And that's really all you need here. There's a few other aspects to it, but I think due to the perspective of this game, it doesn't need to do as much, but what it does do, I think, is highly effective. You know, maybe it's just that I like the sound of wind going through leaves. Maybe that is it. Because I think of other games with wind. Like I've recently, obviously, like many of you have played Silksong. That game has a lot of wind, and no hate to the wind in it. I think the wind is pretty good. But a lot of the wind comes in deserty places. And I'll be honest, I don't fuck with that as much. Because I think the feeling that that's supposed to elicit, and maybe this is the whole point. I mean, Silksong is brilliant, so of course it's the point. There, you're trying to protect yourself from the wind. The wind is fully the enemy. It's supposed to be a challenge and an obstacle, and it's supposed to elicit that feeling of sand getting in your eyes, and it does well at that. But because of that, I don't like it personally as much. So yeah, I think the wind in the trees here is good. Anyway, let me know some games that you like that have good wind. Obviously, this was not exhaustive. This was just a few that I like. And there are obviously some of the most popular games ever made, so I'm unoriginal, but I'm honest. Okay, have a good day. I'm sorry.